My family throws the same beach reunion every summer. This year, they texted everyone except me. The group chat buzzed with excitement about the perfect beach house they'd rented at Emerald Shore. Jackson, my smug cousin, even sent me a direct message. We only want people who actually belong in this family. What they didn't know was that I'd be there waiting for them anyway, not to crash their party or cause a scene. I'd simply let them walk into the beach house I secretly owned and watch their faces when they realized who was really in charge. My name is Emily Dawson, and I've been the family disappointment for as long as I can remember. At 34, I'm a financial strategist at Sterling & Rowe Partners in Raleigh, North Carolina, a job that apparently doesn't count as real work in the Dawson family hierarchy. While my cousins followed the golden path into real estate development like their parents, I chose numbers, investments, and the quiet satisfaction of building wealth behind spreadsheets. The Dawsons are what you'd call classic American middle-class royalty. We gather every holiday, every birthday, every excuse to remind each other of our place in the pecking order. My Uncle Frank owns 3 car dealerships. Aunt Martha runs the family real estate empire. My cousins Jackson, Claire, and Vanessa all work within the family business, married their college sweethearts, and produce the regulation 2.5 children that make for perfect Christmas card photos. Then there's me, single, childless, living in a downtown loft I bought with my own money. I drive a sensible Honda instead of a luxury SUV. I wear tailored blazers to family dinners while everyone else shows up in their country club casual. To them, I'm the puzzle piece that doesn't fit, the one who thinks she's too good for the family business. Jackson, 3 years older and perpetually condescending, appointed himself the family's unofficial gatekeeper years ago. He's the one who decides who gets invited to the inner circle events, who deserves to know about family decisions, who's worthy of respect. Claire and Vanessa orbit around him like loyal satellites, nodding along to his pronouncements about family loyalty and tradition. Emily's just going through a phase. I've heard Aunt Martha say more than once. She'll come around when she realizes she needs family. The truth is, I stopped needing their approval years ago. I learned to navigate their passive-aggressive comments, their subtle exclusions, their way of making me feel like a guest in my own family. When they forgot to invite me to Jackson's promotion party, I didn't say anything. When they planned a family vacation without mentioning it to me, I simply made other plans. But this beach reunion felt different. This wasn't just another oversight or casual snub. This was deliberate, calculated. Jackson's message made that crystal clear. We only want people who actually belong in this family. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, the family outcast, the one who didn't belong. And I was about to show them exactly how much they didn't know about belonging, about ownership, about who really held the power in this family dynamic they'd constructed. As I sat in my office that morning, watching the notifications pile up on their group chat about their dream beach house, I couldn't help but smile. They had no idea they were about to walk into a lesson about assumptions, about judging someone by their willingness to play by your rules. Sometimes the quiet ones are the ones you should be paying attention to. The first hint came through Instagram. Claire's story showed a pristine white beach house with wraparound porches and ocean views. Captioned, "Family Reunion House Goals. Can't wait for everyone to see this place." The location tag read, Emerald Shore, Florida, a private beach community I knew well from my investment research. I scrolled through more posts. Vanessa had shared a photo of the rental confirmation email, practically glowing about the steal of a deal they'd found. Jackson posted a sunset photo from what looked like a scouting trip, writing, "Sometimes you have to invest in family time. This place is going to be perfect for people who actually appreciate what family means." The knife twisted deeper when I realized they'd been planning this for months. Group texts I wasn't included in, phone calls that happened around me, but never with me. Excited conversations that stopped when I entered the room. They'd coordinated schedules, split costs, arranged time off work, all while deliberately keeping me in the dark. The final blow came from an unexpected source. Aunt Martha had meant to send a message to the family group chat, but accidentally texted me instead. Can't wait to see everyone at the beach house. It'll be so nice to have just the family together without any complications. My phone buzzed again immediately. Sorry, that wasn't meant for you. Please disregard. But the damage was done. I wasn't just uninvited, I was the complication they were actively avoiding. That evening, Jackson's message arrived like a formal declaration of war. Hey Emily, just wanted to let you know we're doing a family thing at the beach next week. It's kind of a small space, and we really want to keep it to people who, actually belong in this family. Hope you understand. I stared at the text for a long time, feeling that familiar ache in my chest, the one that came with being dismissed, minimized, erased from their perfect family picture. But underneath the hurt, something else was stirring. Something that felt like opportunity. I opened my laptop and navigated to my investment portfolio management system. Sterling and Rowe had been diversifying into vacation rental properties over the past year, and I'd been the lead on several Florida acquisitions. My fingers moved across the keyboard, pulling up property records, cross-referencing addresses, checking ownership documents. When I found what I was looking for, I had to read it 3 times to believe it. The Dream Beach House at 847 Coral Drive, Emerald Shore, Florida. The property they'd been raving about for weeks. The place they'd rented to celebrate their family unity without me. I owned it. Not through some coincidence or stroke of luck, but through a carefully structured investment trust I'd established 6 months ago. The property was managed by a third-party company to protect my privacy. But the deed was clear. Emily Dawson, sole owner. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair, a slow smile spreading across my face. They wanted to teach me about belonging, about family, about knowing my place. They had no idea they were about to learn those lessons themselves. The property acquisition had been purely business, nothing personal. Last fall, Sterling and Rowe identified a portfolio of undervalued vacation rentals along the Florida coast. The owners were liquidating due to divorce proceedings, and the asking prices were 40% below market value. I'd recommended the purchase to our investment committee, but when they hesitated about the capital commitment, I made a private offer instead. 847 Coral Drive was part of a 3-property package I'd purchased through the Meridian Trust, a legal entity I'd established to protect my privacy and minimize tax exposure. The house came with a property management agreement that handled all bookings, maintenance, and guest relations. I'd never even seen the place in person, just reviewed the inspection reports and financial projections. The management company, Coastal Elite Properties, maintained strict confidentiality protocols. Guests interacted only with their staff, never knowing who actually owned the properties they were renting. It was a clean, professional arrangement that protected both my privacy and the guest experience. I'd completely forgotten about the specific address until I saw Vanessa's Instagram post. Then I'd checked my quarterly rental income reports and found the booking. Dawson Family Reunion, July 15th and 22, 2024. They'd booked it 4 months ago, probably thinking they'd stumbled onto some incredible deal through a discount rental site. The irony was almost too perfect to be real. Here was my family, the people who'd spent years dismissing my career choices, my independence, my refusal to play by their rules. And they were about to spend a week in a house I owned. A house I'd bought with the money from the job they didn't respect, using the financial skills they'd never bothered to understand. I pulled up the property management portal on my laptop, reviewing the booking details. Standard weekly rental agreement, security deposit paid, house rules acknowledged, everything completely above board and professional. The rental income from this single week would cover my mortgage payment for 2 months. But this wasn't about money anymore. This was about something much more valuable, the opportunity to reclaim my dignity on my own terms. I scrolled through the photos in the property file. The house was stunning. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows facing the Gulf. A private boardwalk leading to a secluded stretch of beach. The kind of place that would make for perfect family reunion photos. Assuming you could afford it. Which, apparently, I could. While they'd been judging my life choices, I'd been building a real estate portfolio worth more than most of their annual salaries combined. The management company had protocols for owner visits, but I'd never exercised that right before. The idea of showing up unannounced felt too aggressive, too much like the kind of dramatic confrontation they'd expect from me. No, this needed to be more subtle, more surgical. I opened a new email to Sarah Martinez, my account manager at Coastal Elite Properties. Subject line: Owner Inspection, 847 Coral Drive, July 15th. This wasn't about revenge. It was about truth, about letting them discover, in their own time and their own way, exactly who they'd been underestimating all these years. They wanted to know who belonged in this family. I was about to show them who actually owned the house. Sarah Martinez called me back within an hour of receiving my email. Ms. Dawson, we'd be happy to accommodate an owner inspection during the Dawson booking. I have to ask, is this family group related to you in any way? They are, I said carefully. But they don't know about my ownership of the property. I'd like to keep it that way until I decide how to handle the situation. Sarah's voice took on a professional tone that suggested she'd dealt with delicate family situations before. Of course, we maintain strict confidentiality protocols. How would you like to proceed? I'd been thinking about this all morning. I want everything done exactly by the book. No special treatment, no shortcuts, no family discounts. If anything, I want the contract enforcement to be more rigorous than usual. Understood. We can arrange for you to be present during the check-in process, introduced as the property owner conducting a routine inspection. Would that work? Perfect. And Sarah, I want them to understand exactly what they're agreeing to when they sign that rental contract. Every clause, every fee, every responsibility. Make sure they read the fine print. Already done. We actually updated our standard contract yesterday to include some new liability clauses and security deposit requirements. Nothing unreasonable, just more comprehensive protection for property owners. I smiled. What kind of new requirements? Higher security deposit for groups over 6 people, mandatory property walkthrough with photographic documentation, stricter noise ordinances, and a new clause about social media posting restrictions to protect owner privacy. Standard industry updates, but some guests find them extensive. That sounds thorough. I appreciate your attention to detail. One more thing, Ms. Dawson. The booking shows they've already paid the standard security deposit, but under the new contract terms, they'll need to pay an additional deposit for the larger group size. Should we waive that since they're family? I paused, considering. This wasn't about money. The additional deposit was probably only a few $100s, but it was about principle, about treating them exactly like any other renters, without the special considerations they'd always expected. No waivers. They book the property through normal channels. They pay the normal fees. That's how business works. Understood. I'll prepare the updated contract and have our staff ready for the check-in process on the 15th. What time should we expect you? I'll arrive about 30 minutes before their scheduled check-in. I want to be there when they walk through the door. After I hung up, I sat in my office chair, staring out at the Raleigh skyline. I wasn't planning some elaborate scheme or dramatic confrontation. I was simply going to be present, in my own house, when my family arrived for their reunion. They'd learn who owned the place they'd rented, and they'd have to decide how to handle that information. The beauty of it was the simplicity. No lies, no deception, no manipulation, just facts, just business. Just the natural consequences of their assumptions about who I was and what I was capable of. I spent the rest of the afternoon reviewing the property management reports, familiarizing myself with every detail of the house I'd bought but never seen. 4 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom and private balcony, a gourmet kitchen with professional-grade appliances, a living room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Gulf, a private beach access with kayaks and paddleboards included. It was, by any measure, a beautiful place for a family reunion. The kind of place that would create lasting memories, strengthen bonds, bring people together. They were going to have their reunion in my house, and they were going to pay market rate for the privilege. I arrived at 847 Coral Drive at 2:30 p.m., 30 minutes before the Dawson family's scheduled check-in. The house was even more stunning in person than in the photos. Weathered cedar shingles, wraparound porches, and a view of the Gulf that took my breath away. For a moment, I felt a pang of regret that I'd never visited my own property before. Sarah Martinez met me at the front door with a tablet and a professional smile. "Ms. Dawson, welcome to your home. The property is ready for inspection, and I've briefed the staff on the situation. We'll handle this exactly as you requested." I walked through the house slowly, taking in the soaring ceilings, the chef's kitchen with its marble countertops, the master suite with its private balcony. The afternoon light streaming through the windows made everything look golden and peaceful. It was the kind of place that should bring families together, not tear them apart. At exactly 3 p.m., I heard car doors slamming in the driveway. Through the front window, I watched my family pile out of 2 rental SUVs, their voices carrying across the salt air. Jackson was directing traffic like a general, pointing out where to park and which bags to grab first. Claire and Vanessa were already taking selfies with the house in the background. Uncle Frank was stretching his back and complaining about the drive. "Remember," Sarah said quietly, "you're here as the property owner conducting a routine inspection. Let me handle the initial introductions." I nodded, positioning myself in the living room with a clipboard and pen. Looking every inch the professional property manager I wasn't. The front door opened and Jackson's voice filled the entryway. "This place is even better than the pictures. You guys, we are going to have the best week ever." "Good afternoon," Sarah called out. "You must be the Dawson party. I'm Sarah Martinez from Coastal Elite Properties. Before we get you settled, I need to review some updates to your rental agreement." I heard the enthusiasm in their voices dim slightly. "Updates?" That was Claire's voice. "We already signed everything online." "Yes, but there have been some policy changes since your booking. Nothing major. Just additional security deposit requirements for groups over 6 people, and some updated liability clauses, standard industry updates." Uncle Frank's voice carried a note of irritation. "How much additional deposit?" $800, refundable upon checkout assuming no damages or violations. "And there's a property owner here today conducting a routine inspection, so you'll meet her during the walkthrough." I heard footsteps approaching the living room and took a deep breath. This was it. The moment when everything would change, when all their assumptions about me would crumble. Jackson appeared in the doorway first, followed by Claire and Vanessa. They were all smiling, ready to charm their way through whatever bureaucratic hurdle this represented. Behind them came Uncle Frank, Aunt Martha, and a handful of cousins I recognized from holiday gatherings. "Hi there," Jackson said, extending his hand toward me. "I'm Jackson Dawson. Sorry about the inconvenience with the paperwork. We're just excited to be here." I looked up from my clipboard, met his eyes, and smiled. "Hello, Jackson. I'm Emily Dawson. Welcome to my house." The silence that followed was deafening. Jackson's outstretched hand froze in midair. Claire's mouth fell open. Vanessa took a step backward as if she'd been slapped. "You're... what?" Uncle Frank's voice was barely a whisper. "My house," I repeated calmly. "I'm the owner. Sarah and I were just discussing the updated rental terms for your stay." Jackson's face went through several color changes, confusion, disbelief, then something that looked like panic. "That's impossible. We booked this through a rental company. You work in finance, not real estate." "I work in investment strategy," I corrected. "And this property is part of my portfolio. You're welcome to verify the ownership documents if you'd like." The room fell silent except for the sound of waves crashing on the beach outside. My family stood frozen, processing the impossible reality that their black sheep cousin owned the dream house they'd been bragging about for months. Claire was the first to find her voice. "Emily, I don't understand. How is this possible? You never mentioned owning property in Florida." "You never asked," I said simply. "You assumed that because I chose a different career path. I wasn't building anything worthwhile. This house is just one of several properties in my investment portfolio." Jackson's face had gone from pale to red. "So what? You're going to kick us out? Make us look like fools?" "Why would I do that?" I asked, genuinely puzzled. You have a valid rental contract. You're paying market rate for a beautiful property. What's the problem? Sarah stepped forward with her tablet. If you'd like to complete the check-in process, I just need signatures on the updated contract and the additional security deposit. Uncle Frank pulled out his wallet with shaking hands. $800, you said? That's correct. Standard policy for groups over 6 people. As they fumbled with credit cards and paperwork, I watched my family's dynamic shift in real time. The confident superiority they'd worn like armor was cracking, replaced by awkward silence and sideways glances. Vanessa kept staring at me like I'd sprouted wings. Your rental agreement includes full access to the private beach, kayaks, and paddleboards. I continued in the same professional tone. The house rules are clearly outlined in your contract. Sarah will give you a complete walkthrough. Aunt Martha finally spoke up, her voice small. Emily, honey, we had no idea. If we'd known. You'd have what? I interrupted gently. Invited me to my own house? Treated me like family instead of an inconvenience? The question hung in the air like morning fog. No one had an answer. Look, I said, setting down my clipboard. I want you to enjoy your reunion. That's why I bought this place. To create spaces where people can come together and make memories. The fact that you're here, paying me to use my house for a family gathering I wasn't invited to? Well, that's just business. Jackson opened his mouth to speak, but I held up a hand. I'm not looking for apologies or explanations. I'm not trying to embarrass anyone. I'm just tired of being treated like I don't belong in this family because I chose a different path. I picked up my purse and headed toward the door. Enjoy your week. The sunsets from the master bedroom balcony are spectacular. I walked out of my own house, leaving my family standing in stunned silence among their luggage and their shattered assumptions. As I drove away, I didn't feel angry or vindicated. I felt free. Free from their expectations, their judgments, their narrow definition of success and belonging. They could keep their reunion. I'd keep my dignity, my independence, and my beautiful beach house. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting ahead. Thank you for listening to this story about family, respect, and the power of quiet success. I'd love to hear where you're listening from and what you thought about Emily's approach to handling her family's exclusion. Please subscribe to our channel. Share your thoughts in the comments. And let's connect with fellow listeners from around the world.